Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily. Today is Thursday, October 17th, 2024. On today's episode of the show, we are going to come up with our 5 favorite Florence Pugh performances. My name is Ben Pearson. I'm an editor at slashfilm.com, and I'm joined on today's episode by Slash Film editors Brad Oman
Hey, that's me.
and BJ Colangelo.
Hi.
All right, guys. So, one of the most exciting actresses of her generation, Florence Pugh, only 28 years old, by the way, has a new movie that is coming out in theaters called We Live in Time. I'm going to be talking to the director of that movie on tomorrow's episode of the podcast. But, we're looking for like an idea for a ranking episode of the podcast. And we just figured, hey, let's do it. Let's talk about Miss Flo's filmography here. So, I think an important distinction for this conversation, this is a group list of our collective top 5 Florence Pugh performances, not our favorite Florence Pugh movies. So just want to make that clear to everybody up top. So I have a good way to dive into this. Let's address Fighting with My Family right up top, because as soon as I asked BJ to be a part of this, I was like, you know what? I feel like this movie is probably going to come up. This is one of the, I think, 5 Florence Pugh movies that I've not seen. And I'm pretty sure Brad saw Fighting with My Family. So I was wondering, I suspect BJ is going to try to make the case that this wrestling film from several years ago should enter our particular canon here. But I wonder if she's going to have support from Brad or if he's going to be on the outside looking in.
No, she's gonna have my full support. And Ben, you
Yes.
should watch Fighting with My Family because it is surprisingly great. As somebody who is not a big wrestling fan, like BJ is, I saw this movie at Sundance at the premiere, and it is just like your classic sports movie. Like you're following Florence Pugh in this true story as she tries to become a professional wrestler. The ensemble cast is great. She's phenomenal in the lead role. It's just a really good movie, and I was surprised by how much I loved it. And like I said, she's fantastic in it. So yeah, full support for this to definitely make the top 5 and probably be close to the top. Honestly,
Wow. Okay.
This makes me so happy.
BJ, you didn't even have to fight for this. It's just in.
I did not have to fight for Fighting with My Family. Everyone just understands that Florence Pugh as Paige/Soraya is a great performance, because it is.
All right. Well, 2 against 1. And I'm not necessarily going against it. I just haven't experienced it yet. So we'll just go ahead and bold that one and say this is going to be one of our 5. I want to run through the other 4 Pew movies that I have not seen and see if any of you think that any of these performances deserve to be in contention here. I'm guessing the answer is no, because you don't really think of these projects as Florence Pugh movies. So one of them is The Commuter from 2018, the Colette Sarah, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the Liam Neeson kind of thriller. I guess she has a small role in that. Another one is Outlaw King, which also came out in 2018, the period piece. There's a movie called Malevolent that I've literally never heard of until right now when I was looking at her IMDb. And this is a Netflix movie that is on Netflix right now from 2018. Her face is the poster is just her face, and it's just called Malevolent, and it's about a team of scam artists who get more than they bargained for when a job at a haunted country estate gets out of hand, which sounds like kind of a cool premise, but I've never heard of this in my life. And then the last one is A Good Person, which came out not too long ago, and this is the Zach Braff movie that she made, and it's supposed to be like a very I guess like sentimental kind of like pretty intense drama. And so I was just going to open the floor to you all and see if you had any feelings about any of those.
I'm definitely going to be making a case for A Good Person because it is through and through a showcase for Florence Pugh and how great of an actress she is, and she's magnificent in it. So yeah, I'll definitely be pushing for that to be in the top 5 because it's a fantastic performance from her.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta say that's another one that was on my list. I will say for Malevolent, because I have seen it, it is aggressively fine. Like, it's a fun kind of ghost movie, but it's not doing anything particularly special. She's fine in it. The movie itself is fine. I'm like, A Good Person is one that I struggle with because I'm not a super big fan of the actual movie, but I love a lot of the performances in this movie. But this is a performance list, not a movies list, so my feelings about the movie kind of don't matter.
Okay. All right. So I'm guessing Commuter and Outlaw King and Malevolent can go away. So I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. Actually, I'll just open it up to you guys. So, BJ, maybe nominate one that you think might be worth discussing here.
All right, so the one I want to nominate is from 2022. It is called The Wonder, not to be confused with Wonder. The Wonder is a period piece, and it is a really, really good outlet for Florence Pugh. It's a Netflix movie. She plays a character who is a nurse who is sent to like a rural village, and she is there to like help everybody, and the great famine's going on, so it is kind of like a capital D drama. But she is fantastic in this. The girl that she's watching in this has like a fasting disease or a wasting disease, who can go without eating and not die, and so she's trying to like figure out what's going on there, and she's just phenomenal. Florence Pugh is one of those actors that I'm so mesmerized by because she looks right at home in movies that are made today and also period pieces. She does not have, as the kids call it, iPhone face or filter face. And
Mm-hmm.
I love Florence Pugh in period dress. She like is so at home, and I love this performance for her.
Okay, so I've seen this movie as well. I was trying to come up with my own personal list here, and I had it sort of on the outside looking in because I didn't remember a ton from it. This came out in what year? 2022. So it's been 2
2022,
years
yeah.
now. And so it just wasn't really a performance that stayed with me. And there are so many of her performances that have stayed with me more. But I'm going to star this on my list here so we can keep this in contention. Brad, have you seen The Wonder?
I haven't seen The Wonder.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess there's nothing more to be said about that one right now. Brad, why don't you nominate one?
I'm gonna nominate Little Women
Yeah.
because she is a wonderful brat in that movie. She uses her young face to her advantage, and she feels like a kid. And it's just a supporting role for sure, but it's a good supporting role, and she's great in it. So Little Women.
Yeah, this is an excellent performance. And based on BJ's exclamation there, I'm guessing that this is going to have unanimous support across the board. So I think we should go ahead and bold this one.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. I mean, Amy March is one of the most difficult characters to play in Little Women because she is kind of that pesky little sister. And Florence Pugh's performance in this, I think, made a lot of people understand this character more than anyone else. And that does include like incredible actors like Kirsten Dunst, who've also played Amy March, and Samantha Mathis. But Florence Pugh is just, she's so good as Amy March. I love her.
mhm. Okay, so I'm going to do something unconventional here. I'm going to talk about two movies that I think maybe we can take out of contention just because she has pretty small roles in them, and that is Oppenheimer and Dune Part 2. I was wondering if that's going to be a controversial decision among you two, or if you agree that since we're just talking about her performances on this list, that maybe even though those movies are great, she just doesn't have quite enough to do to maybe launch up into our collective top five here.
I agree with Dune 2. I'm not fully on board with cutting Oppenheimer just yet.
Okay, what do you
I
think,
did
BJ?
not include either of those movies on my list for the exact reasons that you stated, Ben.
Okay,
I'll
all
just
right.
go fuck myself.
Well, Brad, can you, in lieu of that, can you make a case for Oppenheimer?
Yeah, I mean, it's Oppenheimer is a massive movie with a huge cast, and her role is a smaller supporting role. But I think that it is such a significant one because of the impact that that character has on Oppenheimer's life, and she does a great job of going back and forth between being this you know sexy, unattainable woman for Oppenheimer, someone that he does love, but he can't seem to like please or get her to like really want to be with him. And then she also has to show this tragic contradictory side where like she's sad and broken and upset that he's moving on with Emily Blunt. And it's just in a very short amount of time she's able to give a very three-dimensional performance, one that gives you like a good idea of who this character is and why she was so important in Oppenheimer's life. And for a supporting role, it's a memorable performance from her.
Yeah, I mean that is a strong case. I just don't know if it's going to rise to the level of the top five. Five is such a beast of a number here when you have somebody like Pugh who, in such a pretty short period of time, has delivered a lot of really memorable performances. So I'm going to star that one, and then we'll come back to it. Um, I'll just go ahead and nominate maybe the most obvious choice, which is Midsommar.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
there's no question.
I
Yeah.
feel like this list would be psychotic if we didn't have that on there. So I don't even know how much there is to say about this. It's just like one of the best performances of the past 5 years, I think, and just an incredibly physical role. And when I think back on the movie, I just think of her, her heaving, just like the raw emotions pouring out of her as this character Danny is just so it's almost uncomfortable to watch at times because in polite society people don't act this way, but she is pushed to the brink of her sanity in the circumstances of that film, and it's really kind of incredible to behold. So Midsummer, great stuff. All right, so I sounds like we can go ahead and bold that one. Okay. All right, so what do we think about Black Widow? Do you think that deserves a spot in this conversation or what?
No.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I was worried that you were going to try to make an argument for it, Brad, honestly.
No, no, no.
But
And don't get me wrong. Like she's like good, in the role, but like it's not a performance that like you're writing home about. You're like, oh my god, Florence Pugh is amazing as Yelena Belova.
yeah, it actually kind of is when it gets to the Hawkeye TV show. But I think,
Right.
I actually agree because I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, if it was Hawkeye, then yeah, I might actually consider it. But no, not in Black Widow.
yeah, taking TV out of this conversation, yeah, I think it's safe to get rid of Black Widow. So, all right, so bolded right now, just a little status update. We have Midsommar, Little Women, and Fighting with My Family, and then we have A Good Person, Oppenheimer, and The Wonder all starred. All right, I'm going to say something else that might be borderline psychotic. I kind of think we should put Don't Worry, Darling on this list.
Okay, so
This,
this is the one that I've been like teetering with because as a movie, it does nothing for me. But
yeah,
she commits so hard. She believes in this role of Alice Chambers. She is giving it her all. And it reminds me a lot of like Jennifer Hudson and Cats, where I'm like, oh my God, like please somebody free this incredible performance from this nothing burger of a movie.
yeah,
That's how I feel about her in Don't Worry Darling. She is so good, and there's a couple other people that I think are really good, but they're just trapped in this movie.
yeah, I agree. And I think it goes back to what you said about her working really well in period pieces, the like 1960s setting or whatever it's supposed to be in Don't Worry, Darling she works really well in that environment. And then also, I'm going to try not to spoil the movie, but uh, there are things that happen where that performance shifts along the way. I'll just try to keep it as vague as possible. And
Hmm.
I think she does a great job in that mode as well, which is like a sort of a different uh, gear on the dial or whatever the phrase you want to use there. So, what do you think about this idea of her performance in "Don't Worry, Darling" being on this list, Brad?
Yeah, her performance in the movie is great. I'm basically with BJ where like the movie is whatever. But she really does dedicate to the performance. She's phenomenal in it. And it's quite a roller coaster for her from playing this happy housewife to being crazy and paranoid and then basically like losing it and then fighting back. So yeah, I mean it's there's a lot of colors on display there for her, and so I wouldn't be upset if it made. I'm just not sure how to reconcile it with the other performances that I probably like a little bit better.
Yeah. So, what do you think, BJ, in terms of like, should we put a star next to this, or do you feel passionately enough about it that like you and I arguing for this should get the same bold that Fighting with My Family got, or what do you think?
I think that I would. Oh God, it's difficult because the problem is like I was fluctuating between, what do I do about this versus what I do about Oppenheimer, where I think that Oppenheimer is obviously a great movie and she gives a great performance, but she doesn't have quite as much to do versus Don't Worry Darling, where she can't save this movie and she sure is shit trying.
Mm,
And that then becomes like this difficult thing because her performance in Don't Worry Darling is so so good, but I also don't know how much people can appreciate it when they're not enjoying the movie, versus Oppenheimer, where it is a great movie across the board. And so even though she has less to do, it's like, oh, but it's phenomenal. And it's like, so you're juggling with how you're going to trick your brain into processing things, essentially.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's put a star next to it and then go through just a couple more options here. So, one that I would maybe not argue for, even though I love this movie, is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. She
Hmm.
has the voice of Goldilocks in that film, which is just, again, just a beautiful movie and like one of the best animated movies that I've seen in quite some time. But I don't know. She's doing kind of like uh, she's doing a voice that's unusual for her, and it works in context, but it's not necessarily like a memorable enough performance where I think about it when I think about her body of work.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I'm guessing. I think both of you like this movie a lot. So what do you think about her performance in it, and in terms of the context of this list?
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a great performance. It's a great movie. I think that it's definitely in her top 10, but wouldn't be her top 5.
Yeah. Okay, so The Boy and the Heron, she did the English dub of that. I think that's maybe safe enough to, it's okay for us to disqualify that, right? Because that doesn't necessarily seem like in the spirit of what we're talking about here, unless you guys have seen the English version of that movie and she goes above and beyond or something like that. I have not.
So I have seen the English version. If we were talking about Robert Pattinson, I would be making the argument because he
Okay.
is transcendent in the English dub of that movie. But no, it's again, it's a good performance because she's a good performer, but not the top 5.
Okay. Oh, I just realized I thought The Falling from 2014 was a TV show. It's actually a movie. I was looking at her IMDb. And the first thing she was ever in, I guess on IMDb anyway, was this movie called The Falling, which also starred Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones. Have you seen this, PJ? It seems like something you
So
may
this
have
is one
seen.
that I have not seen because we're saving it to watch on my podcast This Ends at Prom, because it is a coming of age story and it's also people experimenting with like sexuality. So it's right up
Ah,
my alley, but I wanted to talk about it for the show, so I haven't watched it yet.
okay. Brad,
But
have you
also a
seen this?
period piece.
Yeah.
No, I have not seen it yet.
Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and disqualify The Falling. All right. So by my count, the only other movie that we have not talked about yet is Lady Macbeth, which really sort of put her on the map back in 2016. Have either of you seen this film?
Yes, I do think that it's good. I do think that she is good in it. I think that this is what put her on, the public consciousness for sure. But I think that she has performed in like similar roles and done more with them in things later on in her career, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think it's just like so impressive to be one of the first out of the gate
Mhm.
performances, and especially for like the kind of like typical ingenue of Hollywood kind of roles, like this is just so it's a dark movie and it's kind of a dark performance in some ways, and she's just really, really good in it. So I guess this is more of like a recommendation for people to seek out Lady Macbeth if you haven't seen that film. But Brad, I didn't hear your answer there. Did you see this yet?
No, that's another one that I haven't seen because I'm just a bad person.
No, that one. I mean, it was very indie and did not get like a huge release. I had to like actively seek that out to find it. So don't feel too bad, Brad. All right. So I think if we're taking Lady Macbeth off the board, then that leaves us with the following movies. So we have Midsummer, Little Women, and Fighting with My Family that are bolded, and then the stars, the ones in contention, are The Wonder, Don't Worry, Darling, Oppenheimer, and A Good Person. So now that we are at this point, what are you thinking, Brad? What's your headspace like right now?
I'm thinking that it's probably a good person and don't worry, darling.
What do you think, BJ?
That is exactly where I was leaning, but I do think that Don't Worry Darling would be like the number 5 on this list, and
Yeah,
then A Good Person, and then now we're just arguing as to like where the 3 that we knew out the gate were in there, where they're gonna all
Okay.
fall.
yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. All right. So I have not seen A Good Person yet, so this is tough because 2 out of these 5 movies I haven't seen. So now I feel who's the bad person now, Brad? But I'm gonna erase The Wonder and Oppenheimer from this list. So that leaves us with these 5: Midsommar, Little Women, Don't Worry, Darling, Fighting with My Family, and A Good Person. And then let's take a break and we'll come back and figure out the order for these things. All right, so I kind of think Midsommar has to be number 1. Am I wrong about that? What do you guys think?
I think that's accurate.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
really
it's
do
like that's
too.
the movie where the whole thing rests on her shoulders, you know?
Yeah, sometimes the obvious choice is the obvious choice because it's the right one.
Yeah, I kind of yeah, there's part of me that like wants to be contrarian and put something else there just for the entertainment of list making, but I just think that performance is like so undeniable.
Yeah.
And it looms so large. It's like one of the biggest uh A24 movies. It's just like it's this huge thing that helps like elevate Ari Aster's career. It's got so much stuff with it. You know, it feels like it's a performance that there's like a bunch of balloons tied onto her and she's like lifting people's careers all at once, you know, while
Mhm.
the performance is happening. So it's just really, really impressive stuff.
Oh
Okay,
yeah, it's
so
also one of the most impressive performances of facial acting because so many actors now, and this is like no shade to people, if like you want to do this, but because so many actors have gotten Botox or work done, they can't fully use the instrument that is their face anymore. And
mm.
she is everywhere, like eyebrows, lips, chin quiver, like everything is moving in this movie. And it is just captivating to watch because we just straight up don't get to see it anymore because everyone's muscles are frozen.
Okay. All right. So we have the number 1 and we have the number 5 with Don't Worry, Darling. So what do you think? Let's be I guess let's approach this with some level of sanity and try to do 4, 3, and 2 in that order. So what do you all think the number 4 performance should be? Because it sounds like you both think she was really great in A Good Person. So I'm wondering if Fighting with My Family should be number 4. What do you think about that?
I honestly think that I would put Fighting with My Family at number 2.
Whoa!
Okay, so
Wow.
here, I'm so glad that you're the one who said that because if I would have said it, everyone would have been like, okay, BJ, but it's because you like wrestling. But like, no, it's genuinely that fucking good.
No, yeah, and like the performance requires so much more of her. Like she has to be emotional because she's going through like a really grueling training situation. She has to be physical because she's doing so much of the actual physical training stuff that is required of a professional wrestler. She has to be funny because her family includes Nick Frost, you know, and she has like a personality to her where she's sassy and tough. And so like there's just a lot of layers to the performance that requires her to be a variety of things. And I think that yeah, it's an incredible performance from her. It really is. It's undersung because of the kind of movie it is, but it really shouldn't be because she's great in it.
Yeah, the thing that's so frustrating about that movie is like because Fighting with My Family is like a genuinely good movie. Like, take out the fact that it's about wrestling, it's a genuinely good movie about a very fascinating person that is still wrestling today and like who comes from a very fascinating family. And she understands it and she takes it seriously. But because this wasn't, the Iron Claw, people think that it's just silly, and especially because it's about a woman they think it's just silly, and it's like, no, like there's a very very good movie here and her performance is phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, my instinct would be to argue for Little Women at number 2, but because she plays a supporting role in that movie, it's hard for me to really make that case, especially since I haven't seen this movie. But from what you guys are saying, it sounds like this film asks a lot more of her than Little Women does. My beloved Little Women does. But so yeah, I guess that makes sense for the number 2 slot. So okay, so we have that locked in. So now it's just a matter of what's number 3 and what's number 4 between Little Women and A Good Person. So, Brad, what do you think?
I'm thinking that it's Little Women at 3 and A Good Person at 4.
Hell
What do you
yes,
think,
yes,
BJ?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. I think I can get behind this as somebody who has not seen several of these movies, but yeah, that sounds good to me. So, okay, let me write this down, add things to our list here. All right, so I'll just go from number 5 to number 1. Number 5, we have Don't Worry, Darling. Number 4, we have A Good Person. Number 3, Little Women. Number 2, Fighting with My Family. And number 1, Midsommar. I think that's good, guys. I think we did the job here. We did what we set out to do. Any other thoughts about Florence Pugh as a performer? Any other moments from any of these movies that we talked about that were disqualified that you wanted to, or erased from our list that you wanted to just shout out? Any like favorite Florence Pugh performance moments across the board? Anything like that?
I just think Florence Pugh is a delight. I think she's wonderful. I could easily see myself marrying her one day if it were ever in the cards. I'm just putting it out there. I'm thinking out loud. I'm manifesting it into the universe. Okay, but no, she's just a fantastic actress, and I feel like she has so much more to give. She's going to be one of those people who's like with us for a long time, assuming that she wants to keep on doing it. But she's kind of like a chameleon. Like she really fits into like any kind of role. And I think that she's only going to get better as she gets older.
Yeah. The only thing that I have to shout out is that her actual truest best performance in anything ever are her cooking with flow videos. If you've never seen Florence Pugh making marmalade, you've never lived. Her cooking videos are so delightful and so fun. And I think that everyone should be watching them. I think they're on YouTube. Some of them might be on TikTok. But yeah, cooking with flow rules.
There's also a great video. I think it's from Vanity Fair, maybe, or something like that, where she's basically just eating a bunch of different British foods, and it's wonderful to watch her do that and talk about each of the foods and whatnot.
Yeah, she's a big foodie. All right, so I was looking at her upcoming list of projects. She's going to be in Thunderbolts, which is coming out next year. She's going to be in a TV adaptation of East of Eden, which is shooting right now. And then she's going to be in a movie called The Pack that I've never heard of, but it stars Florence Pugh and Alexander Skarsgård, and it is directed by Alexander Skarsgård,
Ooh.
co-written by Rose Gilroy and Sophia Silver, and it tells the story of a group of documentarians who go to the remote wilderness of Alaska to save a nearly extinct species of wolves. So that could be cool. Never heard of that before. So yeah, just wanted to shout that out. Also, We Live in Time, great stuff. I feel like if we did this list next week, it would be totally different because I feel like that film would have to be in contention. But because we're doing this whole exercise kind of in honor of the release of We Live in Time, we did not include that one just in our conversation today. But shout out to that film. It's great stuff. You'll hear more about that tomorrow if you come back and listen to the podcast episode, which I encourage you all to do. So you can find much more about the work of Florence Pugh at slashfilm.com. I'll try to link to a few things in the show notes. Slash Film Daily is published every weekday, bringing you the most exciting news from the world of movies and TV, as well as deeper dives into the great features you can find on the site. You can subscribe to the show on Apple, Overcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Send your feedback, questions, comments, concerns, and mailbag topics to us at bpearson@slashfilm.com. Make sure to leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention your email on the air. Don't forget to take a minute to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That really helps us a lot. And tell your friends about the show any way you can. Thanks so much for listening, and we